Hello, and welcome back to more Films That Are Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Dren Zaria, Maverick Dren Zaria. This week we're taking a look at I forgot the year, the 1995 film GoldenEye.
I am invincible!
I'm invincible!
Yeah, finally doing GoldenEye, so all the Pierce Brosnan fans out there can finally get the representation here. And it looks like we might have to start borrowing all these movies from Jeff in the future.
Yeah, because in between this and the last episode, Amazon has purchased the rights to 007 movies.
Yeah. A Bond villain bought the rights to James Bond. I'm a bit trepidatious about where this is going. And this was the first Bond movie I watched, like, after the news, so it's, like, so strange. Do you think they're gonna do a bunch of, like, spin-off shows or something?
Oh, they probably are. We're gonna get, like, 20-year-old Bond before he's 007 as a spin-off.
Okay, so GoldenEye was released in November 1995, so this year is its 30th anniversary. Congratulations, GoldenEye. It cost $60 million and made $356.4 million.
That's a pretty good return.
It was the fourth highest grossing film of the year. First was Die Hard with a Vengeance, apparently.
Huh.
Actually shocked that made more money than GoldenEye. This was the 17th James Bond film produced by Eon Productions. And there was a huge gap between this and the previous film, License to Kill, because that came out in 1989.
It's about 6 years. Isn't that, like, the distance between some of the Daniel Craig Bond movies?
I think between Spectre and No Time to Die, yeah, I think so. 6 years. There was a huge, but the reason why is because there was a huge studio lawsuit that got in the way, which is why Dalton only did 2 movies. So there's this, like, huge gap between movies. People kind of saw the Bond movies as being out of touch with the times. And then this one came out, and the series got a shot in the arm. Although, honestly, nowadays, I feel like more people remember the video game than this movie.
Yeah, no, which I will definitely be talking about at some point during the episode.
Which isn't really the case with any other Bond movies, but anyway. Unless, I don't know, the people talking about The World Is Not Enough video game a lot? I don't think they do.
I actually don't even know if there was a video
game. There
is.
I know there is one, but I don't know if people talk about it or not. It was the last James Bond film that producer Albert R. Cubby Broccoli worked on, because he died in 1996. So Tomorrow Never Dies was dedicated to his memory.
Okay.
And then Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli took over the series. Originally in my notes I had they're still producing them, but I have to issue an update.
Have to amend that one.
Now Jeff is producing them, apparently. And I'm a little scared about that. This was the second Bond movie that did not use the title of an Ian Fleming book or short story.
Interesting.
Because License to Kill didn't use a Fleming title either. Although License to Kill kind of sounds like a Fleming title.
Yeah.
I guess GoldenEye kind of does as well, but...
Wasn't GoldenEye the name of Ian Fleming's estate?
Yes, it comes from the name of Ian Fleming's Jamaican estate.
Yep.
And then the name GoldenEye came from the book Reflections in a GoldenEye, which was later made into a movie starring Elizabeth Taylor and Marlon Brando.
Huh.
There's also a TV movie called GoldenEye, which stars Charles Dance as Ian Fleming. And we've thought about doing that on the podcast. Hell, I was wondering if maybe you would get confused and watch that one instead.
I'm not quite that bad about it.
I feel like Charles Dance could have been or no, actually, he technically was a Bond villain. He's in For Your Eyes Only, but he doesn't have any lines. But, like, I think he'd make a great, like, main Bond villain. Or M. He could be a good M, actually. GoldenEye was directed by Martin Campbell. He also directed Mask of Zorro.
Oh.
Legend of Zorro. Green Lantern.
The 2011 one?
Yes, what else?
Oh no.
And we'll be hearing his name again in our next episode. Did you know that he directed both this and Casino Royale?
I didn't. It's pretty impressive doing 2 first Bond movies.
Yeah, he launched Pierce Brosnan as Bond and Daniel Craig as Bond. This was written by Jeffrey Kane, who helped co-write Exodus, Gods and Kings.
Oh, wonderful.
And Bruce Fierstein, I don't know how that's pronounced. He also wrote Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough.
Okay.
So the cast. We, of course, have Pierce Brosnan, the guy from Remington Steele. And I never thought I'd say this about a James Bond actor, but we previously had him in Mars Attacks.
And he's not the only actor from Mars Attacks that's in this movie.
Yeah, I'll get to that. But Pierce Brosnan, he was the original choice to play Bond in The Living Daylights. But due to his contract with Remington Steele being renewed at the last minute, and by at the last minute, I mean they literally renewed it the day it was about to expire.
Oh, wow.
Fucking assholes. So he had to wait years to get his chance as Bond. He's also in a TV adaptation of Around the World in 80 Days. Where he plays Phileas Fogg, and it's one of the better adaptations of that book. And he's in Mrs. Doubtfire. I swear every time I always forget he's in Mrs. Doubtfire. It's like you don't expect him to be there. It's just a
random thing for him to be in.
I know, yeah, you don't expect him to be there. Sean Bean. Which I was looking at his filmography and going, have we seriously never had Sean Bean on the podcast before this?
I don't think we have.
Yeah, he's Boromir in Lord of the Rings, Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. He tends to die a lot.
Yeah. He's in National Treasure.
Right, that's one of the few where he doesn't die. Spoilers. And The Martian. I remember going to see The Martian in the theater and being shocked that Sean Bean doesn't die in it. I guess it's just because he tends to get typecast as villains a lot.
Yeah.
Or traitors. But anyway. But then again, he's Ned Stark and he dies there as well. So it's like the poor guy just doesn't have good luck. So yeah, I was excited. I was excited to see Sean Bean in this, though.
Yeah. He was also in the recent trilogy of Hitman games, where there's a whole mission where the entire point is you're trying to hunt down Sean Bean and kill him.
I feel like you've mentioned that before at one point. That's pretty funny. Let's see. We got Isabella Scorupco, who was in Exorcist at the beginning.
Oh no! Was that the first or the second prequel?
That's not the. Well, okay. So what happened is they filmed one.
I know they filmed one, shelved it, filmed the other one, and then later released the first one. So, I guess my question is this one that released first or second?
It was the first one that they released.
Okay, so it was the second one they filmed.
And yeah, it's pretty bad.
Because that makes sense.
Both of those are terrible Exorcist prequels, so it's like, I mean, anyway. And for some reason, despite being like different movies, they both still have Stellan Skarsgård as the same character, if I remember right. Oh, God. If we ever do the Exorcist movies, we're gonna have a lot to talk about, but not for the right reasons.
It's amazing that you had that first movie, an all-time classic, one of the best movies ever made, followed by like pure garbage. Like the second one, isn't that considered to be one of the worst movies of all time?
It is, yeah, which is crazy to say about a movie that has Richard Burton, James Earl Jones, and Max von Sydow in the cast. Like, how do you have a cast like that and the movie still doesn't work? And even the director of it is the guy that made Deliverance. It's like, what happened here? Then again, he also made Zardoz, so of course it ended up being a trippy, weird mess. Okay, we're getting off topic. Isabella Scorupco is also in Reign of Fire. I don't know how much you know about that movie.
I don't know if I know much. Trying to think of five.
It's this like post-apocalyptic movie where like there's like a bunch of dragons in it, and it stars Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey.
Wow, it looks like Gerard Butler's also in there.
I forgot Gerard Butler's in it. There's a scene where they reenact. They're like putting on a play for some kids, and they're reenacting Star Wars, and it's the scene with Darth Vader. I am your father. So it's like so weird. It's a very weird movie. Robbie Coltrane, who most people know as Hagrid.
Yep.
From Harry Potter. And he shows up in another James Bond movie as the same character, because he's in The World's Not Enough. No, sorry, the way I realized I phrased that confusingly. He doesn't show up as Hagrid in The World's Not Enough.
Oh. Darn, I was really hoping we were going to confirm that magic is real in the James Bond universe again.
He does look more like Hagrid in The World's Not Enough, though, because he has a mustache, but...
Nah.
He doesn't have the long hair and the big feet. But he plays the same character that he played in GoldenEye in The World's Not Enough, so yeah. And he's also Falstaff in the Kenneth Branagh version of Henry V.
Huh.
Alan Cumming and Famke Janssen, I might be mispronouncing that. They're both in X-Men movies.
Oh.
I think Alan Cumming plays Nightcrawler, and I don't remember who Famke Janssen plays. Wait a minute. Phoenix. She plays Phoenix. Okay. Judi Dench. This was...
Yep. Her first appearance as M.
Yeah, and I remember when I first learned that, I was surprised actually that she'd been around since the Brosnan movies. Because I just knew she was in like the Daniel Craig ones. That makes the continuity a little confusing in later films.
Yeah. just a little bit.
I feel like most people know who Judi Dench is, which she's in like a lot of shit. Jodan Baker, which
we had him in the last episode.
Yeah, because he's in The Living Daylights, but like Pierce Brosnan, he's another actor that was in Bond movies and Mars Attacks. Why? That's such a strange connection. So we've had Jodan Baker 3 times on the podcast. That's actually kind of ridiculous.
And all, like, kind of recently, too.
Yeah, true. What, are we gonna do Mitchell next or something? And of course Desmond Llewellyn, which we've had him in Our Majesty's Secret Service and The Living Daylights because he's Q. Get another Q branch scene in this movie, so that's fun.
It's also it's really fun. We'll talk about it more later, but the Q branch scene in this one's a little unhinged.
It's one of my favorites in the series, if I'm being honest. The music, this was weird because they didn't have John Barry. They also don't have David Arnold yet, so we have Eric Serra, and this is only time doing a Bond score.
Huh.
I wonder why.
It looks like he's done a lot of foreign films, too.
Yeah. Mainly what I was seeing was Luc Besson movies, because he did Leon the Professional, Fifth Element, and Lucy, among other things. Very strange choice to do a Bond score. Okay, so initial thoughts. I'll let you start with this one. I need a drink.
So, I was introduced to GoldenEye not from the movie or the N64 game, but actually the Wii reboot of the N64 game.
That one's called? Doesn't that have a different name or something?
It's called GoldenEye 007 is the name of that one. That one's interesting, and I'll definitely want to talk about that a bit more later.
Wait, it wasn't called GoldenEye Reloaded?
So that was the re-release of that. So on the
Is
Wii,
there actually a
007.
game? Wait, there actually is a game called GoldenEye Reloaded?
Yeah. Because they re-released it on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and so they renamed it to GoldenEye 007 Reloaded.
That's pretty funny, actually.
And I'll talk more about this later, but they basically restructured the movie, changed the tone so that it would fit more with the Daniel Craig movies, and they even have Craig performing the voice for Bond, which is pretty fun. So, and not only was that game my first introduction to GoldenEye, but it was actually my first introduction to Bond overall. I don't think I had actually seen any of the movies when I played this when I played that game. So,
what was the first Bond movie you saw?
Honestly, it might have been.
Was it Skyfall or something like that?
I don't remember which one it was. I'm thinking it was either Skyfall, Casino Royale, or GoldenEye. It would have been one of those three. Anyway.
And I remember you. We'll probably talk about this at some point, but you watched Skyfall and Octopussy the same day.
Yeah. No, that was an interesting clash.
Those two movies could not be more different from each other. But okay, sorry. Keep going.
So just sort of as a result of this being my introduction into James Bond, this movie's always kind of held a special place for me.
To be fair, a lot of people were introduced to this movie through the N64 game, it seems.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so I've seen it a couple times, so I went in already sort of knowing what to expect, and upon rewatch, my thoughts on it haven't really changed that much. It's a really good movie. It's a fantastic start for Pierce Brosnan as a James Bond. He definitely fits the role, which is a very good thing to see out of someone's first time playing Bond. The music, with the exception of like one track, I think is very good. It's very James Bond sounding.
I know which track you're talking about too.
Because I wrote it down and I was like, hang on. It just sounds like someone's mashing random keys on a keyboard.
I know exactly which track you're talking about.
And it has some of the most memorable scenes to me of like the whole franchise, especially the tank scene, which is probably the big standout moment from this movie for a lot of people.
Yeah, but again, you played the game first, so it's like
yeah.
There are a lot of the scenes from the movie are in the game, right?
Yep.
Because I remember a long time ago, you gave me like a summary of the game, and from what I recall, it was basically the plot of the movie.
It's actually, and again, I'll talk about this more later. The Wii reboot game was very interesting because it actually switches around the order of some of the events and changes around some locations, which is actually interesting. But yeah, just an incredibly solid movie. We talked about last time with The Living Daylights how that really felt like an 80s action movie. This really feels like a 90s action movie.
Yeah, it was the first 90s Bond movie. And then the next two with Brosnan are also 90s. Is this the only Brosnan one you've seen, or have you seen any of the other ones?
I think this is still the only Brosnan movie I've seen.
Okay. I feel like you'd like Tomorrow Never Dies at the least, but I don't know about the other two, because a lot of people don't like the other two, especially his last one, but we'll get to that if we ever...
Die Another Day's poster looks like a bit of a mess, and I hate the song for that one.
The song is terrible, yeah. It's like... That's like one of the only Bond songs I just never listened to. Because even like Another Way to Die, like I occasionally search up the instrumental version of it.
Yeah.
Because I can't stand the vocals on it. Yeah, that's interesting, because you only have this one Brosnan movie to go off of. It's like...
Exactly, and it's a pretty good one. It's pretty memorable.
Yeah, like if somebody only saw this, like that makes me wonder, would they consider Brosnan like the best Bond and just having seen GoldenEye? But anyway, and not his other three movies. So did you have anything else to say about the...
I think just that for now.
Yeah, so I haven't really... Well, okay. I guess I have technically played the video games, but it was like once, and I was really bad at it. Because I remember going to your house once. I think we played like the multiplayer GoldenEye thing, and I played a Scaramanga. Yeah. I was so bad at it. I killed like so many times.
That one's fun because if you're doing team matches, you could plant C4 on your teammates and just have them basically suicide bomb the other team.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking very strategically. I should have picked a character with a different gun than Scaramanga. So I wasn't introduced to this again. Well, okay, technically I kind of was, because I remember the first time I really heard much about James Bond was when you were telling me about the video game and stuff. So that was kind of one of my introductions to Bond, besides like maybe a few references I heard here and there. And GoldenEye was the first Pierce Brosnan film I ever saw. It was for a lot of people, to be fair. You know, I guess it's a better place to start than Die Another Day.
Yeah.
I probably would have sworn off Pierce Brosnan if that was the first one I saw. For some reason, I saw the Brosnan ones later than a lot of the other Bond movies. Although I might have seen the beginning of this one on TV, like when he does the bungee jump.
Oh yeah,
I might have seen that on TV once. Because they were showing like a bunch of Bond movies. They showed Man with the Golden Gun, then Goldfinger, and then this. So I'm like, all the ones with gold in the title, apparently. But basically, my knowledge of Bond for the longest time was limited to Sean Connery, Roger Moore, and Daniel Craig. I didn't really see the other guys' movies until later. I've gone back and forth on what I think of Pierce Brosnan as Bond. He wasn't a bad choice, but I wish he'd been given better movies.
From what I've heard of his other movies, that's fair.
I feel like they just didn't know whether they wanted his run to be more serious or more goofy with a lot of his other, because there's some, again, it'll make more sense if you've seen his other Bond movies, especially his last two.
There are kind of hints of that in this movie, to be fair. Like, the entire character of Boris feels so just campy and out of place.
And I don't find the Brosnan ones as rewatchable as some of the other. Honestly, I've rewatched the Roger Moore Bond movies more times than the Brosnan ones. Because I think it's just because they were starting to make Bond more modern, whereas I prefer like the feel of like the classic James Bond films.
Yeah.
So rewatching this one, I kind of was thinking it wouldn't hold up that well, maybe, but I actually really enjoyed watching it. It made me wonder why I don't watch this one more often, honestly. Because I enjoy GoldenEye, like I think it's a good movie. For some reason, I just don't gravitate to it as much as some of the other Bond movies. Like, usually if I'm watching a Bond movie, I'm like, I want to watch one of the Connery ones or one of the Timothy Dalton ones, you know, or maybe one of the better Roger Moore ones. Because again, with GoldenEye, this was the first one where it felt like they're trying to reboot Bond for a modern age.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it, you know, like it's post Cold War, it's the 90s, you know, all that stuff, which I guess at the time I could kind of see why they did that, because License to Kill underperformed at the box office, so they wanted, and there was that huge gap, they wanted to bring people back, you know. Make the series relevant again. Then it even has the same director as Casino Royale, which is another reboot. You know, they reboot the reboot,
and also tried to modernize it even more.
Yeah, but anyway, sorry about my rant. So, GoldenEye. GoldenEye, I think, is a good Bond movie. I had a lot of fun watching it. It's just, again, there's other ones that I'd rather watch, but maybe I'll talk about that later. I think Brosnan is pretty good in his first outing. Although, if I'm honest, I mainly like this movie because of the villains.
This one has really memorable villains.
006, Sean Bean's 006, I think is great. I also really like Xenia Onatopp.
I actually really like Orumov as well. He has a lot of just interesting details that I picked up this time that I don't think I've noticed before.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that, but yeah, I just really like 006 and Xenia Onatopp. They're really memorable characters. They're a lot of fun. There's a lot of villains in this other thing, because you got those two, then you also have Orumov and Boris. It's just like, anyway. And all completely different characters from each other, too. Like, they don't seem to like each other either.
Yeah.
There's some good action scenes as well. You mentioned the tank one earlier, and I mentioned the bungee jump at the beginning.
Yeah.
Although it's definitely more character-driven than story-driven. At times it feels a bit too much like a Bond compilation album.
It can. There's a lot of like you have your helicopter fight scene.
Just greatest hits, you know. The structure of it. The structure of it maybe could have used a bit tightening. But I do think the reason this one works, I think, more than some of the other Brosnan movies, is it had a better balance between the humor and the serious parts than those ones did.
Yeah.
And just better villains as well, I think, you know. It's definitely the best of his Bond movies. Although I do enjoy Tomorrow Never Dies. I do like that one. And hell, even The World Is Not Enough is starting to grow on me. It has a lot of problems, but there's things about it I really like. GoldenEye is not my favorite Bond movie we've done, but I would say I enjoyed it more than Live and Let Die, and maybe even more than Dr. No, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm still undecided on whether I like it more than Our Majesty's Secret Service, though. I'm still working through that. And I will say this about GoldenEye, the more I think about this movie, the more I like it. There's a lot of just really memorable lines, and you know, again, it was like I was kind of just wondering, why don't I watch this movie more? It's a lot of fun. And even Pierce Brosnan is growing on me. He's not like my favorite James Bond actor, but you know, maybe if his other movies had the quality of this one, I would have a different opinion than that.
Yeah, for just taking this movie out of its own, though, it is a strong start.
It's a good debut, yeah, for sure. One thing that's funny, so I own this movie on DVD.
Yeah.
And on the back of the DVD, there is a misprint.
Oh, okay.
It says on the back of the DVD, this movie is rated PG. And just due to the fact that Xenia Onatopp is in this movie, that is a total lie.
So, it's interesting that you bring up what version of the movie you own. This will be a great time for me to transition to my copy of GoldenEye.
Don't you have a VHS of it or something? Yeah.
Yes, so I have a VHS. I'm going to send a couple images here into the Discord chat. So this is the tape that I own. You should throw this into the video for the episode.
GoldenEye. Oh, that's interesting. It's screening cassette. What?
Yes. So this was sent out to like video rental stores like Blockbuster. And so it's the full movie, but at the start of it, it has special previews that are tailored for movie rental locations. And so there was a couple of trailers, I forget exactly how many, for various different movies that mentioned like who stars in it, what kind of awards did this win, how much money did it make on the box office, how much money can you expect to make from renting it out. And so this is the list of trailers that were shown before GoldenEye. You'll notice that GoldenEye is one of the trailers.
So they have a trailer for GoldenEye? That's strange.
But yeah,
what a weird selection
of
movies too.
I know. You have Biodome next to Wild Bill, Richard III, 2 by Sea, Leaving Las Vegas.
Les Miserables, Get Shorty, Grumpier Old Men, and Heat. Not even grumpy old men, grumpier old men.
Grumpier old men. And throughout the movie, there would be 2 messages that popped up. Just at like the bottom of the screen. One of them, I didn't get a photo of this,
what
but it just said like
okay.
property.
What's that one?
Yeah.
2 of by the sea? What is that? 2 if by sea?
Yeah, 2 if by sea. It stars Sandra Bullock. And the trivia that they gave about her in that trailer is that she won like NATO's Female Star of the Year award.
NATO?
Yes.
Did I hear that right? NATO?
Yes, you heard it right. NATO gave her an award. Now, throughout the movie,
North
there'd be
Atlantic.
messages.
Sorry, let me. Okay, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization gave Sandra Bullock an award for
Yes.
Two
Best
If by
female-
Sea.
Why? I don't know if
Why?
it was for 2F by C. It just mentioned that she had this.
That's okay. Maybe it was for a different. Maybe it was for.
Yeah.
Maybe it was for Speed then. But
So,
'cause this is
when I
from
was
what I'm
watching-
reading, this is not a well-regarded movie. Then again, it's a
So, as I
romantic
was
comedy.
watching this, there'd be
Okay,
two
sorry, no,
messages
it's
that
not a
would
romantic
pop up on the
comedy. It's a
screen every now and
romantic.
again.
It's a romantic crime comedy starring Sandra Bullock and Dennis Leary. That does not sound like a good movie. And
I would also like to
Yafakoto's
mention
in
real
it?
quick-
What? Why is Yamakoto in it? Okay, sorry, what were you saying?
I would also like to mention that there was a trailer for Richard III in there, starring Sir Ian McKellen.
Yeah, I've seen that movie. I've seen a lot of these.
That looks
actually.
fascinating.
That one's interesting because it's like it's set in like
In like 1930s or 40s, right?
yeah, I think he's supposed to be like a fascist. It's like a fascist depiction of Richard III, and yeah,
Which sounds interesting.
it's a really good movie actually. I'd recommend it.
Got
Robert Downey Jr. in it. But anyway, sorry. But
So
I
the
think
final
that's-
thing with this tape.
Anyway, sorry. What about this tape is worth mentioning?
So there would be two messages that would pop up every now and again. The first, I don't have a picture of it. It would just say property of MGM/UA. The second one was, if you have rented or purchased this cassette, please call 1-800-NO-COPIES.
Did you call them?
I don't... No, I haven't, but I don't think I was supposed to buy this.
Where did you? Okay, yeah, that's another thing. Where did you find this?
I found it at Goodwill.
Okay, well, it's been 30 years. I don't think anybody cares
dude,
at this point.
And I don't even think that this is even a number you can call anymore.
And also, they misspelled copies.
I think they did it just because of the character limit.
Probably. Okay, what? So, yeah.
So I own an illegal copy of GoldenEye on VHS.
What video store was this supposed to... Was this, like, Blockbuster, or...
I'm guessing like Blockbuster or like some competitor back in the
like,
day.
Suncoast Video? I don't know.
Because from what I could gather, this tape came out April 1st of 1996. Or at least like sometime before April 1st. Because they have like a little sweepstakes at the beginning where the deadline was from between April 1st and May 1st.
How long did these... Okay, did you time how long these trailers lasted before the movie?
I didn't. They were longer than normal trailers, though.
Oh my god. Yeah. What other movie? Okay, Heat. They have Heat. If you haven't seen it, Heat, you should watch that. That's a good movie. And Get Shorty's pretty good as well. Starring the late Gene Hackman.
Oh, that's right.
And Leaving Las Vegas, that's a very good movie, but oh man, is it depressing. It won Nick Cage the Oscar, though, so there's that.
Oh, wow. Impressive.
And then he destroyed a lot of goodwill after that, but anyway. Okay, so... Oh, so I mentioned my DVD. It was rated PG on the back for some reason, but apparently there are versions of this movie that are censored. I think it's the UK version, for some reason, edited out the headbutts in the theatrical version.
Huh. Do you mind real quick if I actually go grab my tape and check and see what the rating is on that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cerveza cristal. Cerveza cristal.
Alright, I am back. It is rated PG-13.
Okay, I was gonna laugh if it was like rated G or something. Yeah, PG-13. But did your version have like the headbutts in it, or do you remember?
I think it did, yeah.
There's a fight with Xenia on the top, and but anyway. I think mine did, but I don't know. I think that was just the UK version, but yeah. Okay, Leonard Maltin.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna guess he gave it a 3, maybe a 3.5, but I'm gonna go with 3 out of 4.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
He said Brosnan's debut as 007 is a slam bang action adventure in the best Bond tradition, with eye popping stunts, sexy women, and international intrigue. That could be any Bond movie, really. There are also PC remarks about Bond being sexist and/or an anachronism.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's his review, I guess. Then he gave, if you remember, The Living Daylights, he gave 2.5 out of 4. So he liked him more on that one. Okay, the story. Now pay attention, 007. James Bond has to find an EMP device. It's just another day on the job. There's Russians, there's computer hackers, and an old friend of 007 shows up unexpectedly. Also, Sean Bean dies.
Who could have seen it coming?
Oh, and Bond bangs a bunch of women.
Who could have seen that coming?
Including one that kills people with her thighs. Jesus Christ. Okay, so pros. I will say he's not my favorite Bond, but Brosnan probably had the best gun barrel.
Yeah.
It's very stylish. It has digital blood flowing down. Anyway, and it just makes you. Let me guess. It makes you think of the GoldenEye video game.
Exactly, because that one also opens with a gun barrel.
I feel like the music of the game is exactly like the music in this movie. Because it just, anyway.
It's actually got a pretty good soundtrack.
So the pre-credits scene, I think is pretty good. Very memorable.
Yeah. You have Bond rappelling down the side of a dam.
He, like, does a bungee jump off the... Yeah, that was insane. Like... And the fact that they actually had to do that stunt, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
And apparently at that dam, they do, like, let people, like, recreate the bungee jump.
That sounds dangerous.
Real life. So, yeah, it's like... I assume they have a lot of, like, safety, like, precautions in place, though. But, yeah, it's...
And one thing I'd like to point out real quick here, this opening scene takes place 9 years before the movie, so it would take place in 1986, which would be a year before The Living Daylights.
Yeah. So it's almost like they went like, oh, Brosnan was supposed to be Bond.
Yeah.
And he's even dressed in a similar way to Timothy Dalton in the opening of The Living Daylights with the black stealth outfit. So, yeah.
It's just a weird detail.
But it's interesting having, like, he got the beginning set during, like, the Cold War.
Yep.
And technically a flashback to... You don't even really get that in Bond movies, where it's, like... The opening is, like, set years before the actual movie. I guess the only other instance I can think of is No Time to Die.
Yeah, but that one's less of a flashback, and it's more of a something happens, and then we jump forward a few years. Oh well, no, I guess it does have
I was thinking
the
of
flashbacks.
the with Saf and killing
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right,
Adeline's
you're right.
parents. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Which I remember seeing that in the theater, and that opening was terrifying.
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
actually a pretty scary opening. But yeah, here you got Bond. It's like, I guess this is Bond's, like, it's like typical Cold War stuff. There's a bunch of Russians guarding a base, and he kills some. There's a lot of great moments during this, like
Yeah,
when he
yeah.
sneaks into the bathroom stall and knocks out a guard.
Sorry, forgot to knock.
Yeah, beg your pardon, forgot to knock. And it's just Bond sneaking around, just looking like Bond. I mean, I'll give him this. Pierce Brosnan does make a good first impression. He does feel like Bond here.
Yeah, yeah.
He's pretty cool just sneaking around in that black stealth outfit. And then meets 006, Sean Bean's
Played
character.
by Sean Bean.
Yeah, Sean Bean's in a Bond movie, but then they kill him, and then they don't. So we'll have to talk about that.
I saw somewhere they said GoldenEye is the only movie where Sean Bean dies twice.
I know, yeah, I always make that joke that it's like he dies and then he's alive and then he dies again. Hey, 00 agents do only live twice. So. It's an established trend with one movie, I guess. Yeah, this is an interesting opening where this is where Oramov is introduced.
Yep.
And he's a dick. He, like, shoots one of his own guys for firing too early.
Well, so that during that scene, this is actually I thought it was a pretty good joke, pretty good showing of the comedy of like this era of Bond, where Bond is trying to just kind of sneak by using these giant gas tanks as a shield because he knows they don't want to shoot him because they're going to blow everything up. So he's just like hiding behind a cart trying to slowly move out of the way.
And then one guy accidentally shoots, and then Oramov just kills him because he doesn't like that. But basically 006 gets killed by Oramov. A bunch of, like, there were gas tanks, right? They did.
Yeah.
A bunch of, like, Bond, like, I don't remember exactly what he does. He, like, shoots this.
There's like a cage that's holding a bunch of them back, so he shoots off the lock and they all start just falling on Oramov's men.
They're just all launching everywhere. It's ridiculous. He, like, runs away. He's on a motorcycle at one point. So that part made me think of Indiana Jones. He, like, he's, like, following a plane. The plane goes off the cliff and he jumps after it. And somehow manages to catch up to this plane and get the... Okay.
Yeah, and then I was like, hang on, how was Bond falling so much faster than the airplane?
That is... Yeah, this part is so fucking ridiculous. It's like, yeah, there's no way. Like...
And not to mention, it sounds like Oramov set this up because he tells his men to stop shooting at Bond like he knows the plane is empty and is just going to careen downwards. It's like, was this just some convoluted plan to try and kill Bond with an empty airplane?
I guess. And how does he, like, get... I just don't know how he catches up to that plane. He's just able... It's like he's able to fly or something. Like, okay. Like, I guess Bond is Superman now. But, it's a pretty fun opening, though. A lot of action sequences. Yeah. It sets up some of the characters pretty early. It's cool seeing Sean Bean as a 00 agent, and we get more of him later, so, And then we get to the title theme.
Performed by Tina Turner, and apparently written by Bono.
and the Edge. It was written by Bono and the Edge.
Yeah.
So it's
Which I didn't know that.
It's kind of a U2 song then. And I like the theme, GoldenEye.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Like this movie, the song is starting to grow on me. Not that I like disliked it, but it's just never been like, it's not one of the Bond themes I immediately think of or listen to, but then again, like this movie, I was like listening to it going, I forgot how good the song was. Why don't I go back to it more often, you know? It seems like they were definitely going for more of like the brassy sound of songs like Goldfinger or Thunderball, but then kind of updating it for the 90s.
Yep. And the visuals are kind of fun too. You got women coming out of like gun barrels dancing. There's a bit of a weird one though, where like there's one woman that opens her mouth and a gun comes out.
Yeah, that looks more like something from like the opening of one of the Daniel Craig ones.
Yeah.
Like Spectre, you know, with the weird... Anyway. And a lot of Cold War imagery, too.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. Like, you got the women walking on, like, the scythes, or you got the Lenin statue toppling over. It kind of just signaling Bond is, like, entering, like, a post-Cold War era.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell the lyrics to this song mean, though. Like, what the hell do they...
Yeah, no, they're really, like, ominous. Like, there's the one, You'll Never Know How I Watched You from the Shadows as a Child. Like, what is that about?
Yeah, I don't know. Watching with a golden eye, but GoldenEye is a satellite that shoots at... Anyway. Okay. This makes it the second movie we've done on the podcast with at least one Tina Turner song in it.
Oh, that's right! Oh, I forgot about Thunderdome.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome being the other one. And I do like this soundtrack for Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. It's one of the better things about that movie. Although that one decided to go the extra mile and just have Tina Turner play a character in it, which, okay. They didn't do that with this one. Although then again, the only time they got a musician to be in a Bond movie, that, yeah, you know, the singer of the title theme, that didn't go well. Die another day. Okay, so let's talk about Brosnan. So Pierce Brosnan, he definitely looks the part of Bond.
Yes.
And he's also...
And I think if I had to compare...
He's also aged really well, too. We were, like, looking at pictures of him. He's like, over 70 now. He looks great for his age.
Yeah.
That dude is a fine
There's a picture
wine.
of him with, like, a full beard from a few years ago. He looks like he could almost be, like, a Bond villain now.
Have him be... Wait. You could have him be, like, a former 00 agent, kind of do the 006 thing. Maybe he's like 005 or 008 or something. What about 001? 001 we don't see anything of.
But if I had to compare him to another Bond, it feels like a slightly lighter Timothy Dalton almost. Because, like, he is still, like, serious, but not as serious as Dalton was.
And he's not as goofy as Roger Moore was.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, like, a lot of people have called him, like, the middle ground Bond. Where he kind of, like, was trying to take different aspects of the previous Bonds and, you know. But again, that kind of became inconsistent with his later movies because the tone could be kind of weird with those. And I will say, unlike Moore and Lazenby, he does occasionally have moments where he feels like an assassin. They're fleeting moments, but they are there. Like, there's that part when like, Alex Trevelyan's holding a gun up to Natalia, and Bond just says, "Kill the girl. She means nothing to me." I'm like, oh damn.
Yeah. Or like his fight with Zhenya when they're like in that sauna area, and he just throws her on the like that hot. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know. He's got a lot of good lines in this movie, though. There's like during
He
that
does.
scene.
I forgot how like punny he is and how many like one-liners he has.
There was one like during that scene. That scene I thought was pretty funny. He's like, because she's like trying to overpower him, and like Bond like holds a gun up to her and says, "No more foreplay." He cocks the gun. I thought that was great. Or when she says he doesn't need the gun, and Bond says, "Depends on your definition of safe sex." I'm just like, wow, some of the lines in this. And he's pretty good in the action scenes too. Again, like we talked about that opening, he's just like stealthing around. You know, he looks like Bond. You know,
and he's a pretty good shot in this one too. Like
he has a machine gun for a lot of it, if I remember right. But
yeah, and he's like accurate with it, and it's an AK-47, which makes it impressive.
He like beats a guy up with a towel on a boat at one point.
That's right. I forgot about that. He kills a lot of people in this one.
I think we looked at like the Bond kill count. I think Brosnan had the highest, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I imagine most of them are from this and Tomorrow Never Dies. Because he kills so many people with like machine guns in those two movies. But like I think with Brosnan, like I said earlier, I think he was a good Bond, but he could have been a great Bond.
Yeah.
Like he's pretty good in this, but again, like just if he had been given better scripts, you know, he could have easily been one of the best Bonds, but just the quality of the scripts just declined after this one, it seems. So in this one, he's a lot more cold in this one than in his other movies. Like there's a part where he knocks out Xenia Onatopp with the back of his hand.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, when he snakes on the boat and just kills the guy with the towel.
Yeah. When he like knocks out Xenia Onatopp with his hand, that felt more like something Connery would do than Brosnan. Yeah. It actually kind of caught me off guard. I forgot. Yeah. Because he does have some moments where he kind of feels like Dalton a bit. Because there's that one scene where he's on the beach with Natalia. Where do I have that written down? He's just sitting there contemplating his life, and Natalia comes up to him. She's like saying, "How can you be so cold?" And he says, "It's what keeps me alive." And she says, "No, it's what keeps you alone." Which I'm like, oh wow, I'm kind of a
kind of got deep there for a second.
Yeah. I like the part when he calls interrogations a lost art. I thought that was pretty funny.
During his whole exchange with Mishkin.
I can't remember that exact line, but it was pretty funny.
It was like, what, no small talk? No chit-chat? That's the trouble with the world these days. No one takes the time to do a really sinister interrogation anymore. It's a lost art.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. He definitely talks a lot more than some of the other Bond actors.
Yeah.
Like, he's a lot more chatty than, like, Dalton or Daniel Craig. Or even Roger Moore, actually, but yeah. But it was kind of refreshing, though, having, like, a Bond movie where it's, like, it's not too serious, but it's not too goofy, either.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other movies in the series that really struggle with that. Like, I think I know The Living Daylights had a few parts where it's like, it felt, there were some goofy parts that felt kind of out of place.
Yeah.
And then we've talked about the Roger Moore ones a lot, but there's some ones we haven't done yet that really are just like, what is happening here? Like Man with a Golden Gun, where it's like you have this really serious plot about this assassin that like could actually kill Bond, but then there's all this weird slapsticky stuff in there. It's just
they bring back the one sheriff from Louisiana for some reason.
And again, the later Brosnan movies lost that balance, I think. They got kind of like they at times it felt like they were undecided on whether they wanted to be serious or wanted to be silly. So it just and they kind of struggle with that balance. Whereas this one didn't really struggle with that as much. This has maybe my favorite Q line of the entire series.
Which one?
Okay, he's like showing Bond the gadgets, and Bond picks up his submarine sandwich and looks at it. And Q grabs him from it.
That.
That's my lunch. Yeah, I burst out laughing every time I hear that.
The Q scene in this is so funny.
It's really good, yeah, like because when he first sees Q, he has he's in a wheelchair and has a cast over his leg, and it shoots a rocket. Brosnan he's definitely more like Connery and Moore, where it's just with the dynamic between him and Q, where he kind of just doesn't take Q seriously.
You know? He's kind of just giving him a hard time. Like, he tries to blow up again in this one. Because he has a pen where if you click it 3 times, it's armed to explode in 4 seconds. And Bond just kind of clicks it 3 times and just holds it there until Q takes it away from him.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Oh yeah, this is the one, the exploding pen. That's right. That's like the one gadget from this movie I always remember. So I don't really remember the other ones.
So, actually, a little bit before the Q scene, there's one scene that I wanted to talk about a bit.
Okay. Is it with Ourumov or something? Or
yes, it's with Ourumov in that meeting in St. Petersburg. Just because it's a very... There's just a few interesting details there that I hadn't picked up on before. So, by this point in the movie, it's kind of been set up that Ourumov... it's not really been shown that he's working with Yanis, which is like this sort of terrorist organization that's sort of the main villains of the movie. But you can tell that he's sort of working on his own, trying to go rogue from the current Russian government.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because again, it's like they were clearly trying to show it's like post-Cold War. Because usually in the Bond movies, the Russian government is like, or like the Russian agents are usually like the villains, but whereas here he's like working on his own. Yeah, that was pretty interesting, I thought.
And what else is interesting is there's certain aesthetic choices that I actually really like in this scene. Because Ourumov comes in and he's still pretty much wearing his old Soviet uniform. But everyone else that you see in this meeting who are supposed to be part of the Ministry of Defense, they're all wearing like suit and ties. They all look a lot more Western, for lack of a better term, than Ourumov does. So it makes it look like he's still trying to hold on to the old Soviet past. And that's like part of the reason why he's like splitting. And it's shown in just small details, which I think is actually just really cool.
He doesn't want to give up on the Soviet Union. He's like Bond. He's a relic of the Cold War. But yeah, that is an interesting detail. I kind of forgot about that. I sometimes forget Ourumov is even in this movie, just because the other villains are a lot more
memorable.
They're a lot more memorable. Like, I kind of just want to talk about Xenia Onatopp this whole podcast.
Yeah, we can talk about her.
I always found her a fun character, just because that was one thing that was missing in most of the Brosnan Bond movies. They didn't have good henchmen or henchwomen. But Xenia is a lot of fun just because she's so psychotic. Like, I mean, she literally gets off on killing people. It's like...
Yeah.
Because she kills people while having sex, so, you know, she's a literal femme fatale.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want a completely over-the-top villain in one of these movies, and she's pretty great at that, you know, like, just...
Yeah.
And also, like, she definitely poses a challenge to Bond. Like, I mean, that first scene where she, like, kills the Admiral, like, is actually kind of terrifying. It's just, like...
Yeah, no, it's... Yeah.
The expressions they make during that scene, it's just like... And then, like, the smash cut to a boat on water to, like, signify that she's, like, you know, having an orgasm. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
It's again, it's so over the top, but it works for this kind of movie. Or the part where she kills a bunch of people with a machine gun and gets turned on by it. Like... Oh my god.
Her death is pretty memorable, too.
Oh my god, I love her death scene. But she's... This part... it's honestly one of my favorite Bond lines, but she, like, gets killed because... she's, like, on a... Oh, what was it? Like a harness or something, and it gets hooked up to a
helicopter.
The helicopter, like, crashes and, like, pulls her through these, like, 2 trees and, like, just... I guess just...
It just basically crushes her to death. And of course, Bond sees this and goes, "She always did enjoy a good squeeze."
She always did enjoy a good squeeze. Like, again, that's another line from this movie that just... like, I cackle like a maniac right here, though. Like, that honestly might be my favorite Brosnan line, because it's just, it's so stupid, but so funny. Like, it's like... Because you just, you know, in Bond movies, you kind of just roll with, like, all the bad, like, puns and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, even the way she, like, dresses in the movie, too. She's, like... It looks like she's wearing a dominatrix outfit at one point, because it's just this, like, tight leather military uniform, like...
It's a very 90s action movie design.
I know, it's just... She's just one of those villains that just, like, she's, like, completely evil, but just enjoys committing evil.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you need from a villain. You know, Famke Janssen definitely pulled that role off. And then some of the other characters in this.
Should we talk about Boris?
Boris and Natalia. That was what I had next. Which I'm surprised they didn't name them Boris and Natasha in this. But anyway.
Yeah.
And Boris is basically just...
stereotypical evil nerd.
I guess. He's like a computer hacker that makes perverted comments. He's always shouting, "I am invincible!"
I am invincible!
They're right in front of you and can open very large doors.
Oh yeah, knockers.
Yeah, knockers is apparently the password. Just, yeah. But yeah, he's kind of just... He's there more just for comic relief than anything else. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, but he had some funny parts. I find Natalia an interesting character.
Yeah.
Because she's not like, you know, she's not the typical Bond girl. She's just a computer hacker, basically. You know, so she's pretty smart.
Yeah. And she's not really action-y. Like, she does have a gun at one point. I don't remember if she really uses it except to hold up the helicopter pilot.
Yeah, but she knows how to use a gun, though, so, yeah, that's something. And you do feel really bad for her when, like, all her, like, colleagues just get killed by the Russians, and she's all alone. She almost dies out in the cold, just... So it's kind of nice, you know, just having a character that's, you know, kind of different from your usual Bond girl, in these movies. And her interactions with Boris and Bond are pretty fun as well.
Yeah.
I like how she, like, later in the movie when she, like, they threaten to kill Bond and she, like, kind of uses that one line against him from earlier. She's like, kill him, he means nothing to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna ask, what were your thoughts on the fake Russian accents in this?
Oh, they were pretty rough. Especially Boris. Boris is the worst offender.
Because let's see, you had Boris, you had Natalia, you had Oramov, and you had Xenia Onatop is Russian, right?
I think
Or she
technically
Georgian. She was
yeah.
Georgian. Okay, so rank them from like best to worst. Their accents.
That's hard because they're not very good. Okay, now when I say best, this doesn't mean that they're good. It just means that they were better than the others. I would probably put Orimov at the top.
Okay, that
then
surprised me.
Natalia, then Zhenya, and then Boris.
I had a feeling you were gonna say Boris was the worst when I asked.
Boris is just bad.
Because I mean, it's like, I don't know. Usually the Russian accents aren't very convincing in Bond movies. Boris just sounded Scottish. I mean, because he's played by Alan Cummings, so it's like, it was kind of. Or sorry, no, I forgot Zukovsky. Where would you put Zukovsky in there? He's probably the worst. Actually, no, he might be the worst because he just sounds Scottish.
Yeah, no, he's at the bottom.
He just sounds Scottish. He does not sound Russian in this. Well, should we talk about Zukovsky?
Yeah, sure, we can move on to him.
I thought Zukovsky was a fun character.
Yeah. It's also fun because they make him a character that had some history with Bond.
They have a good dynamic where it's like Bond they don't like each other.
Yeah.
And they clearly have a past, but they have to work. They're forced to work together. What's that line? He like recognizes Bond's gun before even looking at it because Bond like holds it up to his head. And,
yeah.
When his back is turned, Zukovsky says, "Walther PPK. Only 3 men I know use that gun. I believe I've killed 2 of them." And Bond says, "Lucky me." And he's just like shooting at Bond when he's sitting on the couch. It's just like, oh my goodness, like. And he was such a fun character. They're like, hey, let's bring him back for another movie because he's also in The World Is Not Enough, and they're a lot more friendly to each other in that movie than this one. But anyway,
that would make sense. But I do like their history because someone who we haven't mentioned yet is Jack Wade, played by Joe Don Baker. When he talks about you might want to go see Zhukovsky, he's like, he's got a scar and a limp. I know, I gave him the limp.
Bond says I gave him the limp. Yeah, and then Zukovsky has a line about how much his leg hurts, especially in the cold, and I'm like, yeah, that's always kind of fun when like you introduce a character that wasn't in the other movies, but they like set it up so that him and Bond have a past, like. And even though we didn't see the other movie, we can kind of imagine what it's like, and the 2 actors have pretty good chemistry with each other. So
yeah.
It's pretty easy to imagine, because it could very easily go. You remember Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with Mac and Indy, where it's just like they just did not seem like old friends at all. So that's something that could very easily have gone wrong. I guess it's a little bit different, but anyway. And Zukovsky's wife is there, and she's played by Minnie Driver, actually. just singing this awful cover of Stand By Your Man. Like, oh my god. Like, every time I hear that, that just like, oh my god, my ears just want to roll up and die. Like, um, and even Bond is like,
So,
I can't remember the exact comment Bond makes, but it's like, is somebody strangling a cat or something? I'm like, oh my god.
so since I just mentioned him, we'll talk about him a little bit. Jack Wade,
Okay, that was
played
Jodan
by
Baker. He's
yep,
basically just there to replace Felix Leiter because he's also an
yeah.
American CIA agent.
No, I'm a little confused as to why they didn't just use Felix Leiter.
Yeah, I don't know if they were trying to keep continuity because in License to Kill, this is kind of a spoiler, but Felix gets very injured in that.
Okay.
So that might be why he's just not, he retired from the CIA or something, or he's just not out of commission or something. I don't know. But yeah, I always found that kind of strange because, but maybe I'll talk about that later. But I guess it's like, hey, we got to bring Jodan Baker back as a different character.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Which is funny because he just feels personality-wise so similar to his character in The Living Daylights.
Yeah, because except his character in The Living Daylights was a villain, but yeah.
Yeah. I will say just a fun fact about him is he is one of the playable characters in 007 Racing.
Jack Wade is?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
Who the hell would want to play as Jack Wade? But
anyway. There's a couple really so just like to give you an idea of that game's roster, it's got like a couple original characters for the story. It also has R, specifically John Cleese.
John Cleese, yeah.
It has Q. It has M, the Judi Dench one.
Imagine if they had included R but not Q. Do you know how blasphemous that would have been?
It has Jaws. It has Jack Wade. It has Valentin Zhukovsky. It has Zhenya.
This is a racing game?
Yeah, this is a racing game.
Okay, that's so bizarre.
And he's not in it, but Sheriff Pepper, the Louisiana sheriff from Live and Let Die and Man with a Golden Gun, is mentioned in the game.
You know, as much as I don't like to say this, his character actually would make sense to include in that game because he just seems to always be in the car chases in those movies.
Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot. Koskov from Living Daylights is also a playable character.
Also a strange choice, yeah. Georgy Koskov. Well, speaking of M, this was Judi Dench's first appearance as M in the Bond movies.
Yep.
The evil queen of numbers, as one guy calls her. And she does not like Bond in this.
No.
They just sit down and, talk. She calls him a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, a relic of the Cold War. But then again, Bernard Lee didn't really like Bond that much either.
True. But it does feel really tense between the two in this movie.
But she's just she still needs him. Anyway, I guess. But I will say that is one recasting they got right with this movie. Judi Dench is not in the movie that much, but she is memorable. Because
she fits the role very well, to the point that I'm guessing that's why they brought her back for the Daniel Craig movies.
Yeah, she's in all the Brosnan Bond movies, and then the first 3 Daniel Craig ones. But yeah, and it felt kind of weird having Ralph Fiennes take over in the last 2. Even though I like Ralph Fiennes, but it's a little bit strange not having Judi Dench there anymore. It makes me wonder, like, who they're gonna get next.
Yeah.
Like M.
Maybe they just bring back Ralph Fiennes again.
Ralph Fiennes, just bring back Ralph Fiennes. Voldemort as M.
They could do the funny thing and bring back Edward Fox.
Oh, from Never Say
Never
Never
Say
Again.
Never Again.
Or I'm surprised they haven't done this. They could just get like one of the older Bond actors, like George Lazenby or Timothy Dalton. Or we mentioned Pierce Brosnan earlier. Just get Pierce Brosnan in as M. That might be fun. Oh my god, we haven't even mentioned. Okay, so Bond goes to find Janus, who is actually 006. Sean Bean.
And the scene where they confront each other for the first time and he finds out who it is really cool, because it's in like this old Soviet statue graveyard where it's like all these like statues of like Lenin and other communist leaders just strewn about.
I don't know what 006 is doing, just hanging out at like a cemetery or whatever, but okay. And it's a fun twist villain, because everyone thought he was dead for like half the movie, and Bond is like so shocked when he sees him. He can't even say anything other than why. Yeah. Sean Bean, he is such a great villain in this, because we don't often get to see other 00 agents.
And when we do, they're usually never shown to be that competent. Like, we had the two that die in Living Daylights. We had, what was it, 009 and Octopussy?
Yeah, 009 and Octopussy gets killed dressed as a clown. And then, A View to a Kill, he finds the dead body of 003 at the beginning of the movie.
And then, I forget, is, Skyfall, is he X-00?
I don't know if he was a 00 agent, but Silva was an MI6 agent.
Yeah.
That was, like, left for dead. They kind of tried doing the same thing here as they, as in Skyfall, where it's, like, this former, like, MI6 agent that tries to get revenge.
Honestly, I kind of was also thinking about just Blofeld and, like, Spectre and No Time to Die. How it almost feels like it's supposed to be a similar twist to that, where it's someone from James's past turns out to be sort of like the mastermind of, the current scheme.
Yeah, but it was done a lot better here than in that.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't think Silva was a 00 agent, but he worked for MI6. He's a former MI6 agent.
Yeah.
But I think I like it better here, though, because 006 had a little more of a personal connection to Bond.
Yeah.
And he's kind of just taunting him the whole time. He, like, knows all... It's kind of fun that he, like, knows all of Bond's tricks, And he's actually a match for him. There's just so many great lines from... between those two.
And I kind of wrote down, it's a shame that they kill him at the end, because he could have been a pretty good recurring villain if they wanted to, like, stretch that out over a couple movies.
Yeah, but it's a Bond movie, so it's, like, usually the villain dies. And it's just fun having, like, an evil 00 agent, too. Like, you know.
Yeah.
He's, like, an actual match for Bond. Usually the villains, like aren't much of a match for Bond, but here he's like physically he's his equal, mentally he's his equal, so it's like all the fight scenes between them are great. Like, honestly, most of the lines I think of from this movie are usually just Sean Bean lines. Like, why can't you just be a good boy and die? And Bond says, "You first," or, James, I was always better. It's great. right.
Even like when he dies at the end of the movie, it's a pretty good exchange with him and Bond.
Yeah, when that fight up on the satellite is pretty good.
Oh, it's so good.
And 006 is like kicking Bond's ass during that too.
Yeah.
He's like just
Yeah.
shit out of him. Then he like falls and like Bond like grabs his legs and he's like looking up. He says, because earlier in the movie, 006 said "for England, James," and then Bond said "for England, Alec." But in here, he says "for England, James," and then Bond says "no, for me," and just drops him. Such a great.
And then drops the antenna on top of him later.
That's such a great exchange there.
Yeah, yeah.
Or no, sorry, he said "for Frodo," if I remember right.
For Frodo.
And they reference that satellite fight in The Cable Guy too, which is pretty funny.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Because where Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick are just fighting each other up on top of the satellite dish, and then Jim Carrey says it's like that movie GoldenEye. So they even name drop GoldenEye.
That's right, I forgot. It's been so long since I've seen that.
He also mentions Waterworld during that scene as well. Says he saw it 6 times in the theater, which I'm like, oh my god, that's actually crazy. There's another line. It was like this monologue that 006 gives. Because the whole movie, it seems like he's just trying to get under Bond's skin and just taunt him.
Yeah, yeah. Because he even brings up how many women that Bond's gotten killed.
Yeah, he's like, I might as well ask you for the vodka martinis that have silenced the screams of all the men you've killed. Or if you find forgiveness in the arms of all those willing women for all the dead ones you failed to protect. It's just...
like, that's a cold line.
It's really cold, yeah. And just the chemistry between Sean Bean and Pierce Brosnan here is just great. And just having him go toe-to-toe the whole movie. And his plan is just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I kind of miss James Bond movies having the villain's plot be using a space satellite to try to destroy shit. I mean,
because the whole thing with the GoldenEye is that it's basically a giant EMP ray that just kind of causes things to blow up, even though that's not quite how that would work.
Yeah. He's like using it to blow up, like he's trying to rob the Bank of England. He's gonna like blow it up to like cover it up, basically. So kind of like Die Hard. That's kind of the plot of Die Hard.
Yeah.
He's using a laser satellite. So I mean, sometimes you want the more serious spy plots, but then other times I kind of just want a laser satellite. And we've gotten quite a few in this series. We've gotten quite a few of those in this series. Usually in the sillier ones, like Moonraker or Die Another Day. Or Diamonds.
I was about to say, it's interesting because it is like kind of goofy and over the top when you get the plans, but it still somehow manages to fit the more serious tone of the movie pretty well.
Yeah. I think it's just because there's that personal connection between Bond and Trevelyan. You usually don't get that in Bond movies. It's usually just like he has to stop some crazy rich dude from using his expensive toys to blow everything up. Whereas here it's like, oh, he's a former agent and he was friends with 007, you know, all that.
We should talk about the tank scene. We haven't done that yet.
Yeah, the tank scene. Okay, so there's a part where Bond drives a tank through St. Petersburg.
and the way it enters is fantastic because he just breaks through a wall and starts chasing Ourumov in a tank.
He drives through so many buildings during this. He's just like...
he drives like right underneath the one statue in downtown, and it's like riding on top of the tank.
Statues on top of the... Yeah, it's ridiculous. He's just causing chaos. Like, he's using a machine gun. He crashes into a semi-truck with bottled water in it.
There's a scene where there's like a bunch of like St. Petersburg cops that are now having to like drive backwards at full speed to not get run over by the tank.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun action scene.
And he ends it by essentially shooting a train and then having it derail by running into it. It's such an insane scene.
He also stops at one point to adjust his tie. Because Bond does that sometimes. He's just doing all this crazy shit while wearing a nice suit. Oh, man. But yeah, that was a pretty fun action scene. That's usually the one I remember from the movie. It's that one and the opening. That and the opening are usually the action scenes I remember. And of course the satellite. See, there's a lot of memorable action scenes in this, actually.
Yeah.
There's the part where they're in the helicopter tied up, and he, Bond uses his forehead on the ejector seat to, get them out before missiles hit them. So they just get launched up. That kind of reminded me of that scene from Die Hard 2.
Yeah, where he ejects himself from the helicopter after 10 grenades get tossed in. Honestly, there's quite a bit that reminds me of Die Hard in this movie, because we already mentioned the whole plot, which was basically to steal money. That helicopter scene, Boris is kind of like the, what's his name? Kind of like the hacker in the first Die Hard movie.
Theo.
Yeah.
The quarterback is toast. It does feel like it's set in a post Die Hard world. It's even Tomorrow Never Dies kind of feels like Die Hard during some parts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think you've seen that one, but there's parts of it.
No, I haven't.
There's they're on a stealth boat towards the end, and that stuff kind of feels like Die Hard or Under Siege, I guess. Which I was gonna ask, does this movie fall for the magic computers trope?
Yeah, a little bit. It's more like a magic satellite in this. It's not quite as bad.
But they do have computer hackers in this movie, though.
Yeah. And so they try to do the thing where they reroute their location to a bunch of different cities, which is kind of you can do it. It's not going to look the way that it looks in the movie, but
to be fair, Boris is invincible.
That is true until he gets frozen by liquid nitrogen.
Yeah, that part's pretty funny. Where he thought he survived, but no, he gets frozen to death. I am invincible. And I remember one time I was watching this movie, my dad walked in during the whole climax of this movie, so 006 falling off the satellite and getting killed by it, and he said but wait, there's that one bad guy might get thawed out or something. So he was supposed to just making jokes about how silly he was. He doesn't seem to like GoldenEye for some reason, but anyway. But yeah, magic computers, basically, this falls for magic computers.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's probably the case with a lot of James Bond movies. I imagine a lot of them are.
Skyfall had some pretty magic computers from what I remember.
Oh, yeah, Skyfall falls for that, yeah.
Which feels like a really late period of time to fall for the magic computer trick.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen, a lot of recent movies that are just what the hell? But yeah, it seems to that trope seems to come up more in 80s movies and stuff, because it's just for some reason. And 90s movies, I don't know if you ever saw like The Net, that movie with Sandra Bullock. It's just like apparently computers can completely erase your existence in that movie. They can just completely erase like all of your information.
Oh,
So
okay.
nobody...
I have heard about this. Yeah, I saw like a clip of it.
It's ridiculous.
Starring Sandra Bullock, my favorite NATO's Female Star of the Year winner.
I still don't understand what is up with that. We don't get too many exotic locations in this, but Bond does go to Cuba in this one.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. Oh, this is technically the second Bond movie with an exploding pen.
Oh, really? What was the first one?
Because if you count the unofficial ones, Never Say Never Again had one as well.
Oh.
Although it's used a little... The use of it is a little more memorable in this one, because there's the whole scene of, like... Because you have to click the pen, like, what? 3 times before it arms the bomb. So it's just this really intense scene where, like, Boris, like, has the pen. He doesn't know that it's an explosive, so it's, like, Bond just trying to keep track of of how many clicks. So yeah, that's a pretty good scene there.
I do like that they reference the exploding pen in Skyfall. Where the new Q goes, "What were you expecting? An exploding pen? We don't really go for that anymore."
Yeah. Which, again, kind of makes the continuity a little confusing, but anyway.
Yeah.
Because technically the Daniel Craig ones were supposed to be reboots, but anyway.
Maybe James Bond is just a really common name.
Maybe. I mean, Ian Fleming picked it because he thought it was the dullest name he'd ever heard, so... So maybe it is common. It was the name of an ornithologist, apparently.
Huh.
And I will say this about GoldenEye. The movie kind of saved the series. Again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because License to Kill underperformed at the box office. There was like a legal battle for years. So a lot of people thought Bond might be done, but then this movie comes out and, like, it basically brought the series roaring back to life. So, we might not have any more Bond movies if it weren't for this one. And the video game.
Yeah.
I don't know when we're going to bring that up, but I have a feeling...
I was planning on just mentioning it, like, after the cons.
Okay. And it is a memorable movie. It's definitely, of the Brosnan movies, this is the one I remember the most of. I remember a lot of lines from this movie, and a lot of scenes and characters. Because, like, I enjoy Tomorrow Never Dies, but it's more generic than this one. World Is Not Enough has some memorable scenes, and then some parts that are kind of boring or, cheesy. And then Die Another Day is memorable for the wrong reasons. But if we ever talk about that one, we'll have a lot to talk about, but not a lot of good to talk about. So. Whereas this one, it's like, hey, it's a fun Bond movie. It has a lot of memorable moments. A lot of funny lines. And it does have some moments that feel like classic Bond. They do still use, like, real explosions and models here and there. And it feels more like a classic Bond movie than the other Brosnan movies. The other ones definitely feel way more like of their time,
And I think that what helps it is, even though it's not, strictly speaking a Cold War movie, it still has elements of it that carry it over into the plot.
That said, I do have... oh wow, this cons list is actually a little long, I just realized. Okay. GoldenEye was the first Bond movie to use CGI, and some of it looks weird.
Yeah, like the missiles that shoot out from the helicopter that turn around look kind of rough.
Or I sort of mentioned this earlier, the part where Bond catches up to the plane at the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, that looks, yeah. There's also shots of miniatures that look off. Usually the miniatures in Bond movies look good, but for some reason they look kind of out of place in this. Maybe it was the lighting or something.
This might be because I watched a VHS copy of this. I couldn't really notice.
You didn't notice, yeah, I figured. But like half the time I expected Godzilla to like show up and wreck things. So, yeah. Also, I never thought I'd say this about a James Bond movie. I'm not a huge fan of the score for this one. It has not aged well.
There are some bad tracks.
There are some that sound so bad, and I know what scene you mentioned earlier. The part when Bond and Xenia Onatopp are driving cars towards the beginning.
Yeah, it's like a weird pseudo car chase. And it just sounds like someone's mashing random keys on a keyboard.
God, that music during that scene is so bad. I remember just watching that again and just being like, what the hell was that? And what didn't help things is, like, what made things really painful, I took a bathroom break about halfway into the movie, and I was, like, on YouTube. Yeah. The soundtrack for The Living Daylights popped up. And I was just listening to that, and oh my god, it just made it even more obvious just how much of a downgrade it was. We go from that great soundtrack to what sounds like N64 music. It's just...
Yeah.
Which I guess if people like the video game, they probably like the music for this more. But yeah, it just...
Honestly, so the score of the N64 video game is actually quite a bit different. And I think it actually sounds better.
It's just what, you know, because especially how good the Living Daylights score was too. Like that's one of my favorite scores. One of my favorite scores of the entire series. Okay, so Brosnan, I do have some cons with him. I think he's good in action scenes, but for some reason I just don't get. He doesn't quite have the same classiness that I usually expect of James Bond.
He doesn't have that level of charisma that the previous actors had.
I think it might be his voice, too. Like, his voice isn't quite as... Then again, he's competing against Sean Connery, so it's like,
Yeah. He is a bit more soft-spoken, I think. Especially, like, when he introduces himself as Bond, James Bond, he almost, like, whispers it.
Yeah. And I kind of felt like with his movies, they weren't sure what to do with him at points. They weren't sure whether they wanted to be gritty or goofy. I mean, you can say what you want about Roger Moore, but they committed to the goofiness in his movies for the most part.
Yeah.
I like the Brosnan movies, like, I just felt like they played it... I guess there's more cons with his other movies, but like it feels like they kind of played it too safe. They started feeling more like just generic 90s action movies after a while, or early 2000s action movies.
And I did kind of have that thought on like the satellite dish fight. I'm like, this is a great fight scene. It doesn't quite feel like Bond. Like there was something that just made it feel more like just any other 90s action movie, and I don't exactly know what.
Maybe it's just because the set design in this isn't, like...
Maybe.
I kind of noticed that they don't really... Because usually when I think of Bond, I'm thinking of, like, just all the crazy villain bases and stuff, and all the weird sets, and this didn't quite have that. And also, I kind of mentioned this earlier, they don't really go to that many exotic locations in this, which is what you usually expect of Bond. But at the same time, I kind of see why they... wanted to play it safe, because License to Kill, it was a very, very risky, dark movie to do, and it didn't make as much money as the other ones did, so obviously they were going to want to go a different direction than that, but it's just something that I don't think it paid off in the long run for Pierce Brosnan. Maybe I'm just a bitter Timothy Dalton fan, I don't know. I feel like Brosnan could have been a great Bond, though, if his movies were more serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in like the later movies got so silly, and he just looked so out of place. He kind of has the opposite problem of Roger Moore, because Roger Moore looked out of place in the serious moments of his movies, whereas sometimes Brosnan feels a little out of place in the sillier moments.
Yeah.
I feel like his tenure was it was a missed opportunity for me. Again, I'm kind of going on a rant, but you had a good
And
actor, but the scripts, they just struggled to find the scripts, good scripts for
yeah.
them.
And kind of on that whole like serious versus silly balance, there are moments in this movie where the silliness is a bit more subtle, like Bond using the gas tank as a shield, or when he's on the radio and Moneypenny's talking about Zhenya, and she goes, M says, don't interact without permission, but he's already interacted with her, and you can see him just kind of crack a smile at that. It's like there are like some jokes that are a bit more subtle that actually I think work pretty well for him, but when it gets like
He has some good
too
facial
silly, it feels out
expression.
of place.
He has some good facial,
Yeah,
like that first
yeah,
scene with him and Xenia on a top is really good because he does these like side eyes, like when she says her name. That look he
yeah.
gives, it's pretty good. um, and I thought about it, and I think I've read he might be the least accurate to the Fleming Bond actually.
Really?
Although maybe that might be because none of his movies were based on the Fleming books. So.
No, true, true.
Personally, my favorite Bond performance was in Diet Coke commercials. My favorite Pierce Brosnan Bond was in Diet Coke commercials. Although, honestly, I'll blame it more on the writers, though, because Pierce Brosnan has played, like, spies and assassins in, like, other movies, and I think did a good job. There's this movie called The Fourth Protocol with him and Michael Caine. He's actually really intimidating in that as this, like, Russian assassin. Or The Matador. That was a pretty good one. Brosnan, I think, could have been like I said, he's a good Bond. I think he could have been a great one, though.
Yeah.
He could have been Daniel Craig, if they'd given him the chance to. He was just kind of in this weird era where it's just like they didn't want to fully commit to being dark, but they didn't want to fully commit to being silly either, so it's just strange. Kind of just lost in, like, no man's land or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And we mentioned his voice. Maybe I'm just used to Bond actors having deeper voices, like Sean Connery or some of the other ones, Daniel Craig or Dalton. He does look the part, though, so I'll give him that. His accent is did you notice his accent's a little inconsistent in this?
A little bit sometimes, yeah.
It kind of like, it was a bit weird points. And Brosnan, like I said about Roger Moore, I think he was too nice to play Bond at some points. Like, at least in these, but again, although unlike Roger Moore, I think if you'd given him a darker script, he could have played the part. Because there are moments in his movies that are where he's pretty cold-blooded, but they're just rare. It just feels like Brosnan is just like I don't know, maybe they're trying to be more PC. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that
like
is another
other character.
That is another point I was going to bring up. Actually, there's like, so there's that scene where M gives a speech where she calls Bond sexist. But then this movie goes out of its way to show Bond is less sexist in this movie. So it kind of like, I guess it was more commentary on like the other Bond actors before him. But anyway. Did I say that? Yeah, like I mentioned the Brosnan movies kind of feel more like 90s action movies than Bond movies. Like, he seems to mostly use machine guns in this rather than gadgets.
Yeah.
Or his wits. Sorry, were you gonna say something, or?
I was just gonna bring up a few of the other characters, the sillier characters, feel really out of place. Like Boris, Jack Wade. They just feel weird, like vestiges of like more era things.
He's one of only 2 Bond actors that didn't get a Felix Leiter, because George Lazenby didn't have one either. So instead, he has Jodan Baker's Jack Wade, who Jodan, like his performance isn't bad, but Jack Wade, he just feels like Felix Leiter, but not as good.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, Felix Leiter isn't in this, so we had this other character. It's like, okay, who the hell is this guy? And would you believe it? This is not the only movie with Jack Wade in it. He's also in Tomorrow Never Dies.
I guess they just really wanted to bring him back.
I think he's only in like one scene of that one, though. He's not in it as much. He's in GoldenEye a lot more. But yeah, like he's okay, but I mean, come on, just give us Felix Leiter. They might as well have just named him Felix Leiter. I mean, would it have mattered? But and he takes Bond's car. It's like, come on, like we want to see Bond using his car in this. We don't really get a car chase with a cool Bond car in this, which is a little disappointing. But thankfully, Tomorrow Never Dies makes up for that. But this is yet another Bond movie with a rushed romance.
Yeah, it's very rushed. They don't meet until like, I think over halfway through the movie, right?
Yeah, something like that. That seems to be a running...
They don't meet until they're in the helicopter.
That's a running trend with this series, isn't it? Then again, it kind of is just Bond, like, bangs them and then moves on, basically every movie, so...
It's interesting that so far the 2 most well-developed relationships we've seen Bond have been from On Her Majesty's Secret Service and The Living Daylights. So the 2 Bond actors with the shortest tenures.
Yeah, true, yeah. Yeah, because in those ones they were trying to make it a little more romantic, but yeah. Although the next one, I think, had a pretty good one, but we'll get to that.
The pacing is a bit rough towards the middle.
Yeah, there were some slow parts, I noticed. Although not as many as On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah.
Because most of it went pretty fast. I think it's just there were so many action scenes in this, so it didn't really slow down much. But yeah, there are a few parts that are kind of weird. Like that stretch before they get to the big satellite fight.
Yeah.
This movie introduces another actress to replace Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny.
Yeah, she's not in it for super long.
Samantha Bond, huh? I wonder why they cast her. She's in all the Brosnan movies, and she's okay, but again, it's kind of hard to live up to Lois Maxwell, just because Lois Maxwell had such a perfect dynamic with the Bond actors.
Yeah.
And Samantha Bond's dynamic here is also very different. She's like, here it just kind of seems like she doesn't like him. And like, she says like, something about like sexual harassment or something. It's like, okay. Although they do kind of, in the later Brosnan movies, they kind of like make it a little bit more like she kind of seems to be warming up to him a bit more, but it's still a bit, But anyway, yeah, no car chase in this one. The end credits song is pretty boring. I mean,
yeah.
It was sung by the composer too, which I was surprised to learn. I don't know what. Just use the theme "GoldenEye" again. But anyway,
yeah,
that song is good. Just use that again. I mentioned there's not as many exotic locations. It felt like they were shooting indoors for most of it, which is kind of like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And the sets just weren't, you miss the crazy villain layers from like the classic Bond movies, you know. I mean, the satellite is cool, but that's about it. And then the last thing I had written down is the video games. I have played both versions of it once, and I was really bad at both of them. So I don't have quite the same attachment to the video games as other people do, but that's your cue to talk about the video games now.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start getting into that. There's one thing I just wanted to check real quick. Okay, so the video games. There were two versions that came out. The first one came out in 1997. It was called GoldenEye 007, released for the Nintendo 64. This game was kind of a big deal because not only was it an actually good licensed tie-in video game, but it was one of the first big first-person shooters to come out on a home console. Up until that point, they had mostly been for computers. And they would usually get a port to a home console, but they would never really be that good.
I was trying to think of an example, but whatever.
Yeah. Because like Doom, for example. Well.
Oh God! Imagine
it's a pretty faithful.
Imagine James Bond in Doom. That'd be quite the crossover. Okay, sorry, keep going.
So this game is pretty accurate to the story of the movie. There's no really major deviations, and they also managed to actually get the tank level in there, which is actually really impressive. But the big standout for this game is its multiplayer mode, which brought back a bunch of different characters, not a lot, but like a couple different characters from previous Bond movies, most notably like Oddjob, Jaws, I think Scaramanga's in it.
The N64 one did?
Yeah.
Really? Huh. I guess the version I had that I played didn't have him unlocked, but anyway.
Huh. I think he is a character that you have to unlock. I might be misremembering.
I'd love to play as Oddjob, or like...
Yeah.
Did you say Jaws? Did you say Jaws was in there as well?
Yep, Jaws is also in there.
Just go around biting people.
Oddjob actually, he has like special moves.
Sorry, who does Oddjob? Or
Oddjob. Instead of tossing grenades, he tosses his hat.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Which is just like a fun Easter egg. But the more interesting video game adaptation, in my opinion, is the GoldenEye 007 from 2010. It originally came out on the Wii, but then a year later it was ported over to PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. This game tried to update the plot and the tone to more closely fit the Daniel Craig movies, which were coming out at that time.
You said 2010, right?
Yep.
So at that point, it was just Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, then, not Skyfall.
Yep.
Skyfall hadn't come out yet.
Yep. And so it was supposed to take place in between Quantum of Solace and Skyfall. For a while, some people thought it might be canon, but then Spectre came out and kind of...
oh no.
Kind of shoved it out of the canon, but
well, that, and he's like kind of reliving the same mission again.
Yeah.
Sort of like with Thunderball and Never Say Never Again. It's sort of
so like I mentioned before...
How could the same shit happen to the same guy twice?
And so like I mentioned before, Daniel Craig was brought on to voice Bond. They also use his likeness. Judi Dench portrays M in this as well. Sadly, no appearance from Q or from Moneypenny.
Yeah, because they hadn't cast Q yet. They hadn't cast a new Q yet at that point.
Yeah.
But does he have gadgets in it or not?
Kind of. It's mostly like
because he doesn't really have. didn't have that many gadgets in the first two Daniel Craig movies.
Yeah, the big one is like his watch that he can use to like blow up, or like set off like his remote detonated mines.
Yeah, which is in the movie.
Yep. But the most interesting part of this to me is that they restructured parts of the movie. Some scenes were changed around. Some scenes were just totally rehauled. So just to give a very quick rundown of some of the differences between the 2010 game and the movie. The opening scene takes place only a couple months, maybe even only a couple weeks before the rest of the game. So there's no like 9-year time jump. It begins with Bond trying to infiltrate the facility on the dam, and he's caught on the dam, and so he does that jump without a bungee cord.
Oh, that's okay. Wait, so that's just that scene from The Fugitive. Then
Yes, it pretty much is. And then that's where they do the transition to the
does
song.
006 does he say to 006, I didn't kill my wife, and then 006 says, I don't care.
I don't care. And then it goes into the intro sequence, which is a cover of the original song.
Oh, who'd they get to cover GoldenEye then?
Nicole Scherzinger. She was a part of a band called the Pussycat Dolls.
I don't know that band. But anyway.
Yeah, anyway. So
006, does he just look like Sean Bean did in the movie?
No, they made him look like the guy that they got to replace him. The Elliot Kahn one.
Is their dynamic basically the same as in the movie?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. It's the same sort of thing where they're like kind of close as agents, and then Bond gets betrayed by him.
For England, James? No. For me.
For me.
Except it's Daniel Craig saying
from this point on. Yeah.
I imagine, they had to have made his personality more like Daniel Craig in the...
Yeah. I think he still says that line, though.
Yeah, because I could see Daniel Craig saying that. I couldn't really see Daniel Craig going, like, delivering that whole chit-chat dialogue, though.
Yeah.
At least not in James Bond. Maybe in Knives Out, but not as James Bond.
So from there, the facility stuff plays out pretty much the same as it does in the movie. But next, instead of going around trying to figure out what to do next, he goes directly to Valentin, because MI6 is like, we traced a call between him and Ourumov earlier. And so Bond immediately goes to the nightclub.
And it basically...
Which is now, it's been...
It basically has the same characters from the movie in it, right? So, like, Zenyattop's in it, and like, okay, yeah.
So Bond goes to the nightclub, which is now redesigned to be sort of like a modern, like, nightclub setting. He doesn't have a limp, but he still has the facial scar, and Bond says, I gave him the scar when talking to M.
Oh, that is different.
After Bond gets into contact with Zhukovsky, he tells him that to get more information, he should go to it's like a weapons, like an arms dealer sort of trade show in Dubai. So this is a new scene that they added into it.
Is it Brad Whitaker?
Yeah, let me check. Where am I?
Arms dealer.
No, it is not Brad Whitaker. It's a new character that he meets with there called Sky Briggs.
Okay, that's a weird name.
And so, if you remember in this movie, they briefly show off the EMP helicopter for like a little bit.
Yeah. Is there a whole level of that?
So that's... Yeah, it's pretty much that, except they set it in Dubai. So, like, it's a new location. They pretty much just redid the whole scene to better fit Daniel Craig.
Yeah. Do you still beat up a dude with a towel?
Sadly, no. That's not part of this.
Damn it.
And so Bond's contact is killed by Zenyattop, which is how they first meet in the game. from there, they track the helicopter to flying to a remote base in Siberia, which is the base where GoldenEye, the satellite, is controlled. So Bond goes there to try and stop him, but then he is detained by and interrogated by Minister Mishkin again, who's also killed by Arumov. This part plays out pretty much the same. You get to the train, or to the tank in the train sequence, which plays out pretty similarly. And eventually, instead of going to Cuba, they go to Nigeria, which is where the other facility is. So that's been moved just to a completely different part of the world. But from there, everything plays out pretty much the same. One big difference is that Boris is not in the game anywhere.
Oh. I feel like he'd be out of place, yeah, in like a Daniel Craig type.
Yeah.
At least at that time, because you did have that Russian scientist in No Time to Die. Oh, I should add. Okay, who had the better Russian accent, Boris or that guy from No Time to Die?
I'd have to watch No Time to Die again. It's been a while. And like the N64 game, it did have a multiplayer, and it had quite a few characters from just throughout Bond's history. It had Scaramanga, Jaws, and Oddjob again. It added in Dr. No.
Oh, what? Okay.
I think it had Koskov again as well.
Is Red?
And then later,
Red Grant. See that?
I don't remember. But later, when they ported the game to PS3 and Xbox, what?
Goldfinger. See it?
Actually, when they ported it to PS3 and Xbox 360, they added a few additional characters. They added Goldfinger as a playable character. Dr. Kananga, Teehee, Hugo Drax, Pussy Galore, Emilio Largo, and Max Zorin.
Oh my god.
So you can play as Christopher Walken.
And you said Hugo Drax, which he was... Imagine getting a video game and it's like, oh, one of the characters is named Pussy Galore. Was there anything else?
And then I don't think we're ever going to bring this up again, so I might as well mention this now while we're like tangentially on this topic. There was a 2004 James Bond game called Everything or Nothing.
I've heard of this. Actually,
one of the I don't know if
Sean Bean's in that, isn't he?
I think he's the main villain. What?
Isn't Sean Bean in that? Or was it? No,
he might be. I'd have to look it up.
I think, or Willem Dafoe was in it or something.
What?
I think Willem Dafoe's in it or something.
I was just about to mention the main villain is Willem Dafoe. And he's supposed to be the student of Max Zorin. Like, he was supposed to be his apprentice.
Oh, no. That's a bit... that's a bit of a scary thought.
Can you imagine Christopher Walken teaching Willem Dafoe?
Because another thing also is that Max Zorin, I don't know how much you remember of A View to a Kill, but it's revealed in one scene that Max Zorin is like a Nazi experiment. He's like a Nazi genetic experiment. That guy with the white hair that's always around him is like the doctor. That it's so bizarre. So you have that guy teaching Willem Dafoe all of his tricks, and yeah, that is a terrifying thought. I guess then he would just be the Green Goblin, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
But I've heard that game, like, a lot of people said, like, that's a really good game, and it would have been a better final movie for Brosnan than Die Another Day.
Huh.
But I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it.
Didn't they get Brosnan to be in it?
They might have. I know they at least used his... They at least used his likeness for the game.
I know there's a From Russia with Love video game where they actually managed to get Sean Connery to do the voice.
Wow.
Which is insane. And that was like when Sean Connery was like in his 80s or something. It wasn't even acting anymore. Yeah, he's in it.
Okay.
That's interesting. John Cleese, Judi Dench. Oh, Richard Kiel is in it, so they got the guy back that played Jaws as Jaws. That's interesting. I have to watch like a playthrough of that or something. Okay, so were we gonna do overall thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay, so GoldenEye. It's the best movie we've done with an EMP in it.
Yeah, true.
The other two were Escape from LA and Broken Arrow, I think.
Oh, I forgot about Broken Arrow having an EMP.
I think it was Broken Arrow. I might be getting that wrong, but anyway. This might be a controversial opinion, but it's the best of the two Pierce Brosnan movies we've done on the podcast.
I think I'd agree.
Because the other is Mars Attacks. And I like Mars Attacks, but I mean...
it's... Yeah, you can't... I'd say GoldenEye is for sure better.
Again, it's a fun movie. Brosnan's a pretty good Bond. I mainly like it because of the supporting cast. I mean, because Sean Bean's great, Famke Janssen's great. I like Alan Cumming. I struggle with finding out where I rank Brosnan as a Bond actor, honestly, because I think he was better in the part than Roger Moore was. But like I said, I rewatched the Roger Moore movies more often. Because the Roger Moore ones they're a lot more eccentric, and they feel more like classic Bond movies, even though some of them are really bad.
Yeah.
Maybe it's nostalgia, I don't know.
Because if I had to rank so far just based off of watching their first films...
It's a better debut than Live and Let Die, I think, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Brosnan made a better impression in his debut than Roger Moore did. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Although Live and Let Die had the better theme song, for sure. But for some reason, I just don't tend to go back to the Brosnan ones as much. Although, after watching this again, maybe I should. Because I do enjoy most of them. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
There's one I fucking hate, but like the other three, I'm like, yeah. This isn't my favorite Bond movie we've reviewed. I liked it more than Live and Let Die. And I think I liked it a little more than Dr. No. But I'm still undecided on if I liked it more than On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
See, I think I do like this one better than On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Because they're very different. They're hard to compare.
Yeah.
Because On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it's slower and more serious. And GoldenEye is more fun. Like, GoldenEye is more fun to watch, for sure. But I don't know, I like the story of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I definitely like the music more in that one. Like, the score is a lot better than the score in GoldenEye. It's closer to the Fleming books. And I've mentioned before, Tracy is my favorite Bond girl of the series, so that really elevates it for me. But then GoldenEye, it's more fun. It is such a great cast. I mean, you know, because I like 006 and Zenyatta Top a lot. And Brosnan, I would say Brosnan's a better Bond than George Lazenby. So there's that.
Yeah.
I don't think that many people will disagree with that opinion. But and I don't even, you know, George Lazenby, he was fine, but, you know, it's just like the poor guy only did one movie. It's hard to compare. But either way, I definitely don't like GoldenEye as much as The Living Daylights.
Yeah, no. I definitely put Living Daylights first. I think I'd put GoldenEye second. I'll
wait to rank them when we do Casino Royale, but, you know.
That's fair. That's fair, because my order is definitely going to change when we watch that one.
But, like, with GoldenEye, if you just want one that's action-packed and has a good cast, this one's pretty fun. You know, if you just want fun, you get that. I will say this, I enjoyed it more this time than the last time I watched it. Because I think the last time I watched it, I was paying too much attention to the plot, Whereas this time I was paying more attention to like the characters and action scenes, because that's this movie's strength. Like when I just do that, this becomes a much more enjoyable movie for me. And after thinking about, I would say I do think Brosnan's a better Bond than Roger Moore.
Yeah.
If I'm judging based on performance, but like I said, Brosnan, he was a good Bond, but he could have been a great Bond. I almost wish he'd done a fifth movie that was like more gritty, because that would have been pretty cool to see. But hey, at least we got GoldenEye out of it.
True.
You can go on your your overall thoughts now. I went on long. Sorry.
It is a very strong first movie. I feel like I've been saying that about all these guys' first Bond movies.
Yeah, they all made a good first impression.
Yeah, which is actually kind of impressive. But yeah, apart from like
Lazenby could have used some work, though. Lazenby could have used some work, but that wasn't entirely his fault.
And so, apart from a few problems with Bond's characterization in this, like we mentioned, sometimes he's a little soft-spoken, sometimes he just doesn't mesh well with like the tone of the movie. Apart from that, he does a pretty good job of portraying Bond. The movie, it kind of is just like a 90s action film, but it's really fun as a result of that. Side characters range from being pretty interesting to pretty annoying.
You're not a huge fan of Boris, basically.
Exactly. But overall, it's a fun one to watch. I think this is probably... It would either be this or Casino Royale are the two Bond films that I think I've seen the most.
Oh, so you've seen this one more than... I know you've seen it at least twice.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times.
You've seen it more times than that? Okay. I mean, it's definitely the Brosnan one I've seen the most times. That or Tomorrow Never Dies. And Casino Royale I've watched a lot of times as well. That's probably yeah. But I've probably watched the Daniel Craig ones more than the Pierce Brosnan ones now that I think about it. But anyway. Although I think if I was like going the total, like the one I've seen the most times, that'd probably be like Goldfinger or something. But anyway, yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's really just my thoughts on the movie. I completely recommend it.
But will you recommend the next one? Because the next one we're doing is the 1967 film Casino Royale. No, I'm kidding.
Yay, my favorite version of Casino Royale.
Yeah, we're doing a grittier Bond movie this time. Next time we're doing Casino Royale. Daniel Craig. It's the first Daniel Craig Bond movie. They finally made a serious adaptation of the first Ian Fleming book.
It took him a while.
And it has the same director as GoldenEye. I'm gonna be honest, I want to watch this one immediately. Because I really enjoy Casino Royale. I really enjoy it. I don't know when we're recording the next one, but, anyway.
Well, until then, roll the Andy Griffith.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.